This is Dentistry Disrupted with Dr. Craig D. Clayton. I'm a wellness and biomimetic dentist, passionate change maker, social media thought leader, and educator on disrupting the way we approach oral healthcare. Come along with me as we journey towards a healthier and more empowered you. Welcome to today's episode of Dentistry Disrupted. I am Dr. Clayton, and I'm very excited to have my friend Paige here with us today. And Paige is we're gonna talk about her airway journey with her kids, and we're gonna go over a lot of really good stuff. In this episode, I will refer to Paige and her husband Salva just by their first names, and then we'll refer to her kids by their ages. Before we start, I want to give some background about Paige. Paige is a born and raised Idahoan. She is married to her husband of 12 years and lives in Boise with her 3 children, a 9-year-old and 6-year-old twins. She's been a pediatric nurse for 7 years, and she also has family in hospital administration, meaning she's been exposed to traditional medicine her whole life in many, many different ways. I'm so excited to have you here, Paige.
Thanks, Craig. I'm excited to be here too.
And thanks for taking the time to come in and do a podcast with us. Your story is very important for other people to hear, especially parents that have kids that are inevitably struggling with some of the same things that your kids have gone through and are not aware of how to proceed or even aware of what's going on at large.
Yeah, I was a little intimidated when you guys asked me to come on just because I am still so much in the self-discovery phase of airway health, and I feel like I have so much more to learn and so much more of a pathway to pursue, especially with my kids being different ages. But I do hope that talking with you a little bit here helps it feel a little more within reach for other parents, because I am grateful that I have found the resources that I found, and yeah, I hope to share with you guys a little bit more about the benefits we've noticed, and yeah.
First, let's do some background information and allow you to get to know Paige a little bit more. But can you share more about yourself, especially as it pertains to your background as a pediatric nurse and your experience in the healthcare industry at large?
Sure. Yes, I got my nursing degree at BYU, and since then I initially went into the hospital, the traditional route for most nurses, working with adults, and after about a year of that, I stayed home with my oldest and then wanted to get back into the nursing field and just felt like pediatrics was right for me. So I actually went outpatient, worked at a pediatric clinic where we lived in Omaha, and then when we moved to Boise, I just found another good spot that did very similar care here, and I've been kind of just those 2 clinics for about a total of 7 years now, working with kids. And largely what I do is nurse triaging, so I talk with parents through concerns, problems, and kind of help them decide if they need to speak with a practitioner further. So it's interesting getting into an avenue of medicine that I felt way out of my depths, like airway medicine. It's just been eye-opening, to say the least, of how much more there is to learn always for everybody.
And this is what makes your story especially special, is because you have such a background in pediatric care, and a lot of these airway issues we can spot very early in the pediatric population, and if we treat them, it makes a massive difference down the road. So what first made you realize there might be an issue with your children's airway health? And did you notice any symptoms from the time they were born that were a little unusual or concerning?
So when my twins were 1 year old, I did have the dentist that we took them to at that 1 year visit notice a tongue tie on one of my twins, boy twin, but didn't recommend any intervention, just made a note of it. I didn't think anything about it. And then not until the twins were probably 3, I started noticing snoring in my girl twin. So not even the one that the tongue tie was mentioned on. So the snoring wasn't bothering me. It just kind of seemed like a cute little thing. Like, yeah, she has a snore. A whole year later, we started noticing other symptoms with it. Like, she was my really restless sleeper, wake up a lot at night, the snoring. All things that I just associated with, like, normal kid behavior. The really emotionally labile days that were often associated with the poor night sleeping, So as I was putting together a lot of these pieces, the pediatrician went once they were 5. So it took about 2 years of me kind of noticing snoring and then putting together pieces of other aspects of it that we decided to do an ENT visit. And that's kind of just how it all started. And then the snowball just continued to grow from there.
Okay. So before that point, were you given any advice or solutions for these symptoms? Or was this largely a sounds like it was a self-led journey until you got to the ENT.
Right, yeah. I don't remember anybody suggesting any solutions that I can recall.
That's so crazy.
The only thing I had the dentist again. Every visit would tell me how one of my twins' tonsils were really large and how she would get a buildup of plaque on the bottom.
Yeah, plaque and like tartar.
And tartar on the lower teeth that was a result of mouth breathing.
Yeah.
And I just, that didn't sound right to me. Oh yeah, so social media really kind of helped me on this journey of self-discovery with the mouth tape that everybody was using for sleep. I didn't feel like it was normal for my 3-year-old if it wasn't normal in an adult.
Yeah.
And I just started to get curious about that. And so it was largely a self-led journey. Oh, and the dentist would also mention every visit that she had really large tonsils.
Okay.
But just to keep an eye on it. And I don't know what that means.
Sometimes we decide or say, let's just watch it. And we have this phrase in dentistry that's like, okay, well, if we just watch it, then we just watch it get worse. Typically, we've got to make a plan of action. It's like watching a cavity. It's like, well, if we don't make a plan of action to actually address what's causing it, it's like, we're just going to watch it get worse. We're going to watch it until we have to treat it. So
I feel like there was
for
always
you for identifying like that and following your heart and intuition and looking into that, because there's a lot of unknown there. So what was that first visit like with the ENT when you crossed that threshold of like, okay, this needs to be addressed, and it made sense the next provider to see was an ENT?
So with that ENT visit, I went in really kind of thinking, okay, we're going to talk about a lot of things, and they'll do a pretty extensive evaluation because this visit was going to, even with insurance, was still going to cost me quite a bit of money. And then we would talk about maybe surgery at the next appointment. So I assumed the first visit with ENT was going to be about just evaluation, again, that wait and watch, maybe follow up in a couple months, and then go from there. Okay. But right away at that first ENT visit, checked all their boxes pretty quickly. I mean, huge tonsils, disruptive sleep, snoring. There were like 2 others, but like she checked all the boxes. And so they, right away, I mean, within the first 15, 20 minutes of our appointment, we started talking about surgery, which was shocking to me. But I kind of went in hoping for solutions. And if they're saying surgery, I felt good about it. We then scheduled surgery for just a week later. It was so fast.
Quick.
Fast. Wow.
And that, something I looked up not too recently was reviewing the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatricians on basically the workflow or the flow of treatment for snoring and sleep disordered breathing. And it was pretty alarming. First was, okay, if there's snoring or disrupted sleep, sleep study, or if they check enough boxes, straight to tonsillectomy, taking the tonsils out, taking the adenoids out at the same time as well if those are enlarged. And then after that, it's if snoring resolves, great. But if it comes back, the next treatment was using a daily nasal spray, a steroid nasal spray for these kids. And then if that doesn't work, then the next treatment suggestion was a weight loss program.
A weight loss program.
Yeah.
Program for kids.
Yeah. Weight loss program for kids. Yeah. Hilarious, right? And one of these kids are in the 30th percentile because they're not thriving because they're not getting good sleep and they're not getting growth hormone release. And then you put them on a steroid, which further inhibits their growth. And then if the weight loss program doesn't work, this will shock you the most. The final step, a CPAP. So you're going to give a 6-year-old a CPAP.
I can't even imagine.
But this is published. The AAP guidelines. This is an official document statement of this is how we treat sleep disordered breathing. No mention of things like myofunctional therapy, tongue placement, tongue posture, tension in the body, all of these other things where we have so much documented evidence that it helps.
Right.
It's crazy,
that is truly crazy.
Yeah. Is this the first time you've heard this?
That is the first time I've heard this. No, even with our journey, I feel like it's in this traditional medicine world, we are so solution-oriented rather than like active treatment sometimes. We want to go in, the tonsils are big, we're going to remove them. They're still snoring. There must be something wrong with the nasal passages. We're going to spray them with a medicine. If that, it's shocking, but I will say it doesn't surprise me. Unfortunately, the truth of it.
Yeah, and a lot of the proper solutions are written off as nonsensical, or they don't work, or there's not enough evidence.
Right.
When we have a lot of evidence that it works. So your girl twin got her tonsils out, and then what happened after that? Well, how did her story progress?
Yes, so I was initially very pleased. Snoring immediately resolved, and now looking back, I do have some questions about removing tonsils, like if it had to happen, but she did start getting good sleep, and there was I immediately saw behavior improvement, and just overall, our house was doing better. And when I say immediately, tonsil surgery is very rough. Like, the recovery is 2 weeks of very difficult nights and days for the whole family. So when I say immediately, I mean like the month after that.
Okay.
But then what started happening is that Ellie started grinding her teeth. And not just a little bit of grinding, very loud, all night long. She would come and crawl into bed. One night she came and crawled into bed with us. I did not sleep almost the whole night. It was just so loud. When my husband and I will be watching TV at night, the kids are in bed, we would actively hear it from her bedroom.
Oh, that is a terrible noise.
It's a horrible noise.
The first time I heard my son grind, we were camping 2 years ago. Oh. And I could not sleep the whole night. And I kept reaching over and
trying to relax,
closing his lips and trying to prevent him from grinding. And I felt helpless because I didn't really understand at that point what to do either.
Yeah, and you just want to go in and fix it. But I was alarmed though. I'm like, has she always been teeth grinding? And I just didn't hear it over the snoring. But I don't think so. Looking back, it's so loud. I think I would have noticed it too. But when I brought that up with my pediatrician, again, it was she'll just keep watching it.
She'll grow
out of it.
Yeah.
And then I do have a sister-in-law that wears a night guard every night for grinding her teeth. And I just didn't, I don't want to start at 6 with her having to wear a night guard every night for teeth grinding until she's old and dead. That feels crazy that the answer is from 6 on, she has to wear a guard every night. There has to be
for the rest of her life.
Yeah, there has to be a better solution than that. And so I was fortunate in that Eliza and I went on a hike together, and we got talking about this, and that just opened the door that I was looking for, but didn't know I was looking for.
Cool. Yeah, and grinding is often written off as, something they'll grow out of. It's not a concern. Feed them less sugar before bedtime. Their brain's too active. And what we don't understand as professionals at large is that I compare teeth grinding to CPR. So when CPR is performed on a human, you tilt their chin up because it opens up their airway. So similar to that, the jaw goes forward at night, and because it pulls the tongue out of the airway. So that's why that grinding's happening. And I tell parents, watch, if you have your child move their jaw forward, keeping their teeth together, all their teeth slide together as if you were sliding, a card across a table. It's just like an even plane because that jaw is going forward over and over at night to open up the airway. Because when we drop into REM sleep, which is when we have the growth hormone that's released and it's the most restorative sleep, all the voluntary muscles in the body become paralyzed, right? And so if the tongue doesn't have good posture and there's not enough space, then that tongue falls back, and so the body responds by sliding the jaw forward, trying to keep the tongue out. But that happens after they wake up. So they go from REM back up to a lighter stage of sleep. The jaw goes forward, and then they start to drop. It's just
still not getting that good sleep.
Yeah,
that we're searching for.
Yeah. So her sleep improved, but then did symptoms return?
Her symptoms were still better, but just kind of hanging out in this area of I'm still not getting the results that I expected. And that was difficult because it's not like you go into this, again, being in the medical world with so results driven that it's very disappointing when there was no follow-up that I even could look to try to look for next steps. It was just like, oh, I guess here we are.
Yeah. So what
makes you question yourself, your judgment as a mom.
And that's something you should have to question, because you really just innately know what your child needs, even if you don't know what that solution is, right?
Right.
So what did you talk about with Eliza? What were some of the next steps that you started to put together of like, okay, this is how I keep moving forward?
I wish I could remember that conversation better, but I just know she's so passionate and she's such a good speaker. It brings people in a way of like, it just helped me to realize there was another door and got me looking at tools. I think she must have mentioned braces, like the Myo brace that we use now. I feel like she must have mentioned something about that because it got me Googling Myo brace. I think tooth pillow is another one. And myofunctional therapy. So I'm sure those were like the hot words that I internalized and brought back with me to like start being the Google master. So we went to a place, got an evaluation, and my daughter is checking every box that's like, yeah, she would be a great person to undergo myofunctional therapy. We believe we would see a lot of positive results with it. With her tongue tie release should be considered. And, using other tools. Yeah, so I walked away with that with, like, more questions than I knew what to do
you had
with.
Answers, maybe.
So then I went back to Eliza, and she was so great to talk through things with me. And it led me to working with the myofunctional therapist. Then the pathway became clear.
Okay. Oh, I'm so glad. And I imagine it brought you a lot of relief.
It brought me a lot of relief in just knowing there was a path that I could pursue, even if I still wasn't sure what my outcomes would be. Because the journey with myofunctional therapy and with the Myo brace that we're using, it is a long process. Like it's not a result.
Yeah.
You don't go do one session and you're like, wow, look how strong my daughter's tongue has become.
Yeah.
Right?
It takes time.
It takes time, and that can be really difficult.
Cooperation with the kids, which is the hardest part.
And like even with the Myo brace, it was, we got to get the kid used to the thing. So it's not going to yield any improvement initially, really. We're getting them just familiar with this flimsy thing, and then you get, after a month or two of that. So it just is a lot of patience, which is a virtue that I have not been blessed with in large amounts. So it's been good for me to also take a step back and just be present in these moments with the kids of this type of physical therapy, and just letting the journey kind of play out and see where we land rather than needing an answer right away.
That's great feedback and great insight into your journey. And I just wanted to explain a couple things to our listeners. So a Myo brace or tooth pillow are basically one and the same devices. They're different companies. Myo brace is the one that innovated the product and is really the original, and then tooth pillow uses a very, very similar appliance. And what it is it's a sleep appliance used at night, and it helps to encourage some growth of the upper jaw, but it also helps prevent against grinding, and then it reinforces good tongue posture habits at night. And the myofunctional therapy is essentially physical therapy for the chewing, speaking, and swallowing muscles, and the main goal is to strengthen the airway, which opens it up, and to train the tongue to stay up and forward, sealed against the roof of the mouth. These are a lot of treatments to take on all at once, and especially after just her having gone through surgery not that long ago. So cost can be a definite concern. Myofunctional therapy, a sleep appliance, tongue tie release. If you feel comfortable, how did you navigate that aspect? What's kind of your feedback, and what would you say to parents who are worried about the expense of jumping into this, intercollaborative
Sure.
approach?
I feel like it might have been a little easier for me because no matter which avenue I took, there were going to be costs associated with it. So I just had to pick which path I thought led to downstream better outcomes.
Yeah.
So regardless, there was going to be money flying out of my wallet. Not flying. But regardless, like...
Yeah, it's a big investment.
It is an investment, for sure. And I think something that also helped me is just coming off of surgery, how expensive that was for the surgery. And realizing I don't want to have to go through something like that again. I also had a neighbor who had to have a whole palate expansion as an adult. And that just sounded horrible.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if there's an option out there, I feel like it's worth it to take a good look. And I did a lot of looking initially, and I think it's okay for you to take some time. Like, the cost is a factor, and if you have to wait for the moment to be right for you. But again, it's like that window is pretty narrow sometimes with kids, especially if you miss it in infancy, which if I could go back and release tongue ties, I would have different conversations now than I did then.
Yeah.
But I'm like, there's still this narrow window. I feel like we need to act while we can, how we can. And, really, the cost is not much different in my mind than braces. It would be a no-brainer for me to put my kid in braces if they needed it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, then why is it? I think it just feels different now because it's not talked about more.
Yeah.
But it really isn't that different of an approach. And in fact, I would say your Airway help for just sleep alone, if it's nothing else except for getting better sleep, that is more important than anything related to the braces, which was like, of course we do that.
Yeah, and treating it early, not only do we improve their sleep and then their growth and their ability to learn and be able to focus during the day and just be overall happier, we do prevent those bigger costs down the line. Braces are a big investment. Orthodontic treatment at large. Sleep disordered breathing, as we talked about, is a significant concern. At this point, like they're already exhibiting that they have sleep disordered breathing. But then down the road, too, as they become adults, it's not unusual for kids with these symptoms to develop into adults that then have sleep apnea at some point in their life. And then at that point in time, as you mentioned, like your neighbor, the only way, not the only way, but one of the ways to actually get to the root cause of sleep apnea is to create more space in the mouth for the tongue so it doesn't fall back. And you have to do pretty aggressive surgeries, Even the more conservative options, it's still surgery and it's still a lot to go through to fix the problem. When if we address it early, we just take care of it now, and then they don't have to go through that.
As I was thinking, if there's something I can do now that's going to prevent a lot of downstream issues, it was well worth the time and the cost, which really, again, comparable to braces for our journey. Even I say that having two kids doing it at the same time. So I guess a part of my story that I didn't share is that while all of this started with my girl twin, I just brought along the boy twin along for the ride too. I felt like he could benefit if we're going to be doing this myofunctional therapy, and if we're going to be looking at the myo brace, I want him looked at too, because who knows, right? Like he had other issues that weren't related in my mind, but I had been told that bedwetting could also be a symptom of not getting the good sleep. And that was really his only thing, but I was getting so tired of him peeing through his pull-up at night. So much laundry that I was like, you know what, let's just take him. Let's just bring him along for the journey. And I know I said that this is a long process. There are no results that you get right away. But with him, I have to retract a little bit, because there was immediate results where his bedwetting improved almost within the first week. It was down to once a week. By the end of a month, he was maybe twice a month. And
That's amazing.
It has been wild.
That's amazing.
That I can't even remember now the last time he wet the bed at night. And for that alone, I'm like, obviously there was some functionality that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
And so even he could benefit from this better sleep that he's not getting. And as I was talking to my husband about telling him I was going to be coming on this podcast with you, I was like, what would be your takeaway from all of this? Because we still don't know a lot of the downstream results yet, right? We're still in the middle.
See for a couple of years.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be, like, a lot of the rewards to be reaped in years to come. But he was saying, even if the only result is that our kids are sleeping better, this has been worthwhile for us. If that's all that we gain, we're happy. But then there's so much more hope, right? There's so much more that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, to breathe well is to live well.
That is true.
Something that Dr. Zaghi, one of the leading experts in the field, likes to repeat is breath is life.
Yeah.
Which is obvious, right? But it's something that we take for granted, something that we don't appreciate fully when we normalize snoring at large and sleep disordered breathing as a result. In the media, you mentioned snoring and how it can be, considered cute in little kids. And then we see videos on YouTube that get millions of views. And then we see shows and movies where snoring is just something that's comedic.
Right.
And normalized. And then again, we play games like with our kids and pretend we're sleeping. What do? We snore. We sleep noisily when breathing should be silent and gentle night and day. So it's crazy. And it makes it a hard uphill battle because there's so much to fight against, and it's very much an upstream battle. Thank you so much for your transparency and sharing the details of your story. What were some of the biggest challenges and setbacks along the way? How long have they been in treatment now?
I think it's been 4 months.
Okay.
That sounds right. We do our myofunctional therapy appointments every 2 weeks because I have to get on the ball. A lot of times it's me trying to...
Yeah, I get it. We're there.
To rally,
we
to do exercise.
Are there too. We ebb and flow with our consistency for sure.
Yeah, so we've been doing myofunctional therapy. We just had our 9th session. And as far as challenges, the myofunctional therapy took a lot of getting used to initially at our house. I think the first time, like the first week, it took me and my battles might be a little bit larger than some because I have 2 at once that I'm trying to have both of them sit down and cooperate and listen. But I remember that first week it was like, well, I will wait. I'm just going to wait until you're ready. And it was like 45 minutes of them like sitting doing one and then getting up and I was like, well, we are going to continue to wait and there will be no story for bedtime until we finish. And that took a lot of patience on my part. But after that initial battle, I'm not going to pretend it's perfect. There are some days where even I'm the one that just doesn't have the capacity.
I get that. I totally fall into that same category too often.
But it really is true that the consistency is key, not even for the results, but also for them to be compliant. They're like, oh, it's time, and they get their stuff. And if you can make a game out of it, sometimes I make a game out of it. If we can do this in 5 minutes, because it really should only take 5 minutes, then you can watch an extra episode of Bluey or something.
There we go. Made some positive reinforcement.
Yeah. So there's been challenges with the Myo brace, that device that they wear at night, and then mostly at night. There was some challenges with them spitting it out, or putting it half in, half out. And
that'd be uncomfortable. That'd be more uncomfortable than having it all the way in.
It's just stubborn. So we've had to just do adjustments here and there. I now tape their mouths at night after the story. They get their last drink of water. I mean, it's like all the things. Then we tape. And that took, again, there was like probably a week-long battle where it took like 4 pieces of tape because then they have 12 questions that pop up as they're taping on taping. When we go through a bunch of tape.
Yeah. And what tape are you using? You're just using the, like, across the lips? Like center of the lips? Or
center of the lips, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I like to point out to everybody at large. I don't like the hostage style tape, as they call it. It's like you just need a little piece across the center to keep that. It's like that reminder. They can still open their mouth on the sides, but...
And the tape was more just to make sure the brace wasn't poking out or ending up on the floor.
Yeah, to keep it in all night.
Yeah. And that's been working great. So we've been doing that for about a month, and it's been great. We're slowly overcoming the challenges, and I do see great improvements in their sleep. I feel like the device, that Myobrace, really does help with that proper tongue positioning for them to get good, deep sleep. Just on the drive home we were driving home from Sun Valley yesterday, my husband and I were just kind of patting ourselves on the back a little bit about how great of sleepers our kids are. You know, we can make so much noise, all the cousins running around, and they're just out. And I attribute a lot of that to this myofunctional therapy and this Myobrace that's giving them the tools so they actually do sleep well, because that has not always been the case.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I mean, that's such a massive win. And I feel like the journey can be a series of small gains, and then sometimes there's large gains, but certainly looking back, then we start to realize, wow, changes are big.
You forget how far you've come when the process is slow. Because I was like, hey, babe, when was the last time our girl came and crawled in here with us to sleep? And he was like, oh, she still comes in all the time. I was like, no, think about it. When was the last time? And he's like, yeah, actually, I don't know. I really don't know.
That's amazing.
So not only are they getting better sleep, but so are we.
So what advice would you give to parents who suspect, who've identified with some of these symptoms, the restless sleep, the bedwetting, behavioral issues, open mouth posture, snoring? What's some advice you would give to parents who suspect their child may have airway-related issues based off of some of these symptoms?
I wish I knew how to give better guidance on resources, because I wish they would have been available to me too. I mean, they're already ahead of the game just if they're on this podcast listening to you.
Yeah.
Know that there are options out there, and the benefits aren't just theoretical. They're actually happening in real life for regular moms that didn't really know what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah.
And I still have a lot more to learn, so I'm still on this journey of looking at how I can help my 9-year-old now, who's like in a much different place than my twins. But I guess the advice is, if you're noticing these things, the plaque on the teeth, the mouth breathing, the snoring, the bedwetting, I would delve deeper. I would just be curious and see what else you can find.
That's great advice. And we will link some resources in the show notes as well to give you some guidance on where to start and how to find some providers to perform an evaluation and help you on this journey. And as a pediatric nurse, what would you like to see change in the healthcare field at large to help more people become aware of this issue? Because it is pervasive. We see it, in my practice, we see it in the majority of children exhibit symptoms.
I would have different conversations now as a first-time mom than I had then. I feel like tongue tie releases felt kind of like kitschy. Like,
okay,
maybe you could do it, but is it really going to help? And their latch is fine, so why even bother addressing it or looking into it? If you notice a tongue tie, if you have any latch problems, I wish I would have been more curious. Be more pushy sometimes. And I would love to see the providers even taking an opportunity to look for those things too. I know they have a lot. I adore the pediatricians I work with. Their intentions are great. Their care they give is great too. I think as a healthcare system, we also rely on other people to have their specialties. So I know they rely a lot on lactation, and they rely a lot on pediatric dentists to kind of do some of those evaluations. So I guess I would like that collaboration, just continue to have them all working more closely together to kind of help build the picture. And I do see it starting to happen. I see there's a lot of great lactation specialists in the Valley that I've noticed starting to bring up these tongue ties more.
Yeah.
And, but again, it starts with education, kind of at the provider front, whether it's the lactation specialist, the pediatrician, for it to then trickle down into the patient population.
I like that. We need to make those changes. So hopefully you can put a little bit of information out there to maybe spark some curiosity.
Right.
Because this is something because you're right, some of these tongue ties can be a little taboo.
Right.
And another resource we'll link below is a book called Tongue Tied by Richard Baxter, who is a dentist. And I wish providers would read this book because it is very research intensive. It has study after study after study to prove the point that, hey, this is something that's well documented and something that if we treat can make a big difference in many children's lives. And something that he reinforces that you've probably caught on to today is that it is an intercollaborative approach. Why it's gotten a bad rap is because there are providers that just snip and go. It's like, oh, you have a tongue tie, snip it, problem solved. And that's why, and especially there are some methods that are not very effective, can be traumatizing. And so it's important for listeners to know that it needs to be a functional tongue tie release. Functional meaning we've done all the work beforehand to make sure it's successful and to also make sure that it is necessary because not every tongue tie needs to be released. So I wish every provider, every parent understood that, but especially our pediatricians. So hopefully we'll be able to make enough noise to help. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We covered so many good things. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, of course. And I hope that by sharing this story, at some, for those kids out there that are snoring or are doing that mouth breathing all day long, you just start to notice and realize what's happening so that you can fix it a little sooner than maybe I was able to, or just, start to get curious about it and find the solutions before you need the surgery.
I love that. Get curious. I think that's a good mantra because that's what leads to change. That's what opens up our minds to the fact, you had to open up your mind because you've been through training for, you're in the pediatric space. And so you could have just gone along with the status quo of like, oh, this is the only solution. It's, all the normalization, but it's because you got curious and this is how we change. This is how we improve as a society in the care we provide and how we treat these issues that really impact our health long term. So thanks for getting curious and thanks for that new mantra because I love that. Thanks, so everyone listening, get curious. Get curious about these issues because that's where you'll find answers.
That's the truth.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today to have this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It was so great to have Paige here on this podcast today, and I'm really grateful that she was able to come in and share her story. To learn more about Airway health and functional approaches to treatment, check the show notes below. We are going to link some resources and books that you can start to read and learn from to understand what those next steps are, how to find providers, and also to get some more information so you can really understand the underlying issue and how to treat it. So I'm really excited for you to start this journey. Again, if you recognize any of these symptoms in yourself, in your children, this is something that is so overlooked in conventional treatment. And I always want to emphasize that we as providers are at large are just not receiving this training. As you heard with Paige, she is a pediatric nurse and this was all new to her. And this should be something that is caught in the pediatrician's office, but they don't have education in this. I mean, in medical school, they don't even cover the mouth. They just go to the back of the throat. And so it's totally foreign territory for people. And a note on tongue ties, not every tongue tie needs to be released. As I said earlier, that's where tongue tie releases have really gotten a bad rap, is this tendency, especially, a couple of years ago. I don't feel like it's as much now. I feel like things are changing. And maybe that's just pressure from other communities, legal pressure, but not every tongue tie needs to be released. And to evaluate it properly, the child or the adult or the teen, the patient needs to go through the proper steps of having a proper evaluation to see if they do have a tongue tie. Because a lot are missed because we're looking at it the wrong way. We're asking patients to just lift up their tongue, touch the roof of their mouth with the tip of their tongue. They can open all the way and we say, oh, look, they don't have a tongue tie. When in reality, the proper way to evaluate is to hold on to the tongue, the entire tongue, and try to lift the entire tongue flat against the roof of the mouth. And if we can't achieve that without the patient closing their mouth or only having their mouth open a little bit, that is a tongue tie. That is the right way to evaluate it. And again, these resources will help walk you through this more functional approach to actually identifying the root causes, treating them. Because if we don't do this, the tongue tie release is not going to be successful. It is not going to help the patient. And it can actually make the problem worse. So that's why it's so important to understand this. As you can tell, I'm really passionate about this topic. I'm excited for all of you to learn more. Rely on those resources. We will continue to put out content to help you on your journey. And a quick legal disclaimer. While I am a dentist, I am not your dentist. So please, for specific dental advice, oral health advice, consult with your local provider to get a proper evaluation and to identify those next steps that you need to take. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Dentistry Disrupted. And until next time, take care and we'll talk to you soon.